It was supposed to be just another quiet Tuesday morning. Jack Bennett, a 67-year-old retired U.S. Marine, sat alone in the corner booth of Marine's Diner, a no-frills little spot just off Highway 17 in South Carolina. He came every morning at 6:45 sharp. Same black coffee, same scrambled eggs, same weathered ball cap with a faded Semper Fi patch stitched on the front. He didn't talk much. Most people in town knew him only as that old Marine with the cold stare and the stiff walk. But no one ever asked what he'd seen or what he'd done. They figured if he wanted to talk, he would have done it by now. Then it happened. At exactly 7:08 a.m., just as Jack was reaching for his second cup of coffee, the diner's door flew open with a violent slam. A young man in a black hoodie stormed in, waving what looked like a pistol in the air. "Everybody down, empty your wallets, now." Panic, screams, dishes crashed to the floor. An elderly couple ducked under their table. The waitress froze behind the counter, hands trembling. But Jack didn't move, he didn't flinch, he didn't speak. He simply stood up slowly and took one long look at the kid. Not scared, not angry, just steady. "What the hell are you looking at, old man?" the kid barked. Jack didn't answer. He took one step forward, then another. "Back off," the kid shouted, jabbing the gun in the air. But Jack saw it. The hesitation, the shallow breath, the trembling fingers. He'd seen it before, in another country, another lifetime. And in one fluid motion, Jack lunged forward, knocked the weapon to the ground and sent the kid flying backward with a single thunderous punch. The room went still. Everyone stared. The kid lay sprawled on the floor, groaning. But then something strange happened. He looked up at Jack, blood on his lip, eyes wide, and muttered 7 words that froze Jack to the bone. "I wasn't gonna hurt anyone, sir." And just like that, the war Jack thought he left behind came roaring back. The cops arrived within minutes. The kid didn't resist, he didn't run. Just sat quietly on the floor with his head down, mumbling something Jack couldn't hear. As the officers cuffed him and led him outside, Jack noticed something fall from the boy's hoodie pocket. A folded photo, crumpled at the edges. Without thinking, Jack picked it up. It was a picture of a woman, late 30s, pale, thin, sitting on a hospital bed, smiling weakly. Beside her, the same kid, no hoodie, no anger in his eyes. Just fear. Jack felt something tighten in his chest. Later that afternoon, still unsettled, Jack drove down to the sheriff's office. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe curiosity, maybe something older, something from Fallujah or Kandahar or one of the other places that still lived behind his eyelids at night. The deputy looked at him, surprised. "You hear about the kid? Thought you'd want him locked up." Jack hesitated. "What's his name?" "Ethan Cole. 19, no priors. Works nights at the gas station. Dropped out last year to take care of his mom. Cancer, stage 4. Jack said nothing. The deputy added, "Real, plastic, painted black. No one hurt, thanks to you." But Jack wasn't listening anymore. In that moment, all he could see was another 19-year-old, Private First Class Danny Malone, bleeding out in his arms, whispering about how he just wanted to go home. Jack hadn't saved him. But maybe he could save this one. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table, photo in hand, heart heavy. Then he reached for the phone, called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. "Yeah, it's Jack. Listen, I need a favor. You still running that program for vets and first-time offenders?" A pause. "Good, there's this kid, name's Ethan. I think he deserves a second chance." Sometimes, the hardest battles don't happen overseas. They happen long after the uniform comes off. A week later, Jack found himself in court, not as a witness, not as a victim, but as an advocate. He asked the sheriff, the judge, even the prosecutor to consider a lighter sentence for Ethan. "The boy made a mistake," he said, "but he's not a criminal, he's desperate." Some listened. Most didn't. "Mr. Bennett," the prosecutor said, "this boy threatened a room full of people with what they believed was a gun. Whatever the intent, the trauma is real." Jack clenched his jaw. He wanted to scream. He wanted to tell them what real trauma looked like. He wanted to say that this boy reminded him of hundreds of other boys he'd seen in war zones. Lost, scared, angry, abandoned by a system that never showed up. Instead, he just nodded. "I understand." Later, outside the courthouse, Jack caught up with Ethan's public defender. "The kid was scared," she said. "Won't even look me in the eye. Said it was better to lock him up. At least his mom would get medical help if he disappeared." Jack stiffened. What do you mean? The lawyer shrugged. His mom's Medicaid was just denied. He thought being caught might trigger emergency assistance. Said you'd understand. Jack felt his stomach tighten. That old feeling, helplessness disguised as rage. It had followed him back from every war zone he'd ever served in. That night, he went home and pulled a dusty locked box from his closet. Inside were medals, ribbons, a folded flag, and an envelope. A letter, written 10 years ago, from Danny Malone's mother. Thank you for being there for him. Thank you for not letting him die alone. Jack had never answered. But now, he picked up the pen and began to write. Not for Danny's mother. For Ethan's mother. He didn't know if he could fix everything. But maybe, just maybe, he could help prevent another young man from being consumed completely by a war he never signed up for. And for Jack, that was a mission worth fighting. 2 days later, Jack knocked on a door he never expected to visit. Apartment 4B. Linwood Public Housing. The woman who answered looked older than her years. Thin, pale, wrapped in a frayed blanket, she coughed into her sleeve before speaking. Can I help you? Jack removed his cap. Ma'am, my name is Jack Bennett. I'm the one who, he hesitated, who stopped your son last week. Her eyes narrowed for a moment, then widened. Oh, silence stretched between them. I didn't come to accuse him, Jack added quickly. I came to understand him, she nodded, slowly stepping aside. Then come in. I don't have much, but I have coffee. Inside was dim, barely furnished. The smell of antiseptic and old dust filled the air. An oxygen tank sat near the sofa. Family photos hung crooked on the wall. Ethan as a toddler, a high school graduation that never happened, a smiling man long gone. Jack sat quietly as she poured the coffee. I didn't raise him to be that kind of boy, she said. He always wanted to help people. Used to spend his allowance buying canned goods for the food bank. She paused. Cancer doesn't just take your body, it eats your hope. And his too. Jack nodded. I've seen what hopelessness does to men. Good men. They spoke for hours. By the time Jack left, dusk was settling in. He stood on the sidewalk, heart heavy, torn between anger at a broken system and sorrow for a boy who never had a fighting chance. That night, Jack made calls. He contacted an old Marine buddy who ran a nonprofit that helped vets and struggling families. He called the local news, anonymously tipping off a reporter about the Medicaid cuts affecting terminally ill patients. And most difficult of all, he sat down with Ethan. At the juvenile facility, Jack stared at the kid through the plexiglass. You mad at me? Ethan asked. No, Jack said calmly. I'm mad at what made you feel like you had no other choice. Ethan swallowed. It wasn't about money. I thought if I went to jail, maybe someone would finally notice her. Jack leaned forward. You're not invisible, son. Not anymore. The boy's eyes welled up. I'm not your dad, Jack said, but I'm a Marine, and Marines don't leave anyone behind. The pressure escalated quickly after that. The DA doubled down. We can't be soft on crime, she said on the local news. We can't encourage vigilantes either. But public sentiment shifted. Jack's story, and Ethan's, began to spread. Veterans rallied behind the cause. A small protest formed outside the courthouse. A GoFundMe page raised nearly $30,000 in 48 hours for Ethan's mother's care. Jack had spent a lifetime fighting enemies with weapons. Now he was fighting with words, with memories, with the weight of every name etched on the black marble wall in Washington. But not everyone agreed. At the local VFW meeting, a few older veterans scoffed. Kid pulled a gun in public. Doesn't matter if it's fake, could have gotten someone killed. Jack stood and cleared his throat. You're right, he said. What he did was wrong, no question. He paused, scanning the room. But I ask you this. How many of us came back from war and made mistakes we were lucky no one saw? How many of us carried ghosts and anger and fear we never understood? No one answered. I'm not excusing him, Jack said. I'm just saying, someone needs to show him what real strength looks like. The judge agreed to a special hearing. Ethan stood in court, hands shaking, flanked by Jack and his attorney. I'm not proud of what I did, Ethan said. I was scared. I didn't know who else to turn to. I thought if I scared people, they'd finally listen. The courtroom was silent. Then Jack stood. He didn't read a prepared speech. He just told the truth. Ethan reminded me of a young Marine I served with. Same eyes, same silence, same weight on his shoulders. That Marine never made it home. Ethan still has a chance. He looked at the judge. I'm not asking you to ignore what happened. I'm asking you to see the whole picture and give the kid a chance to make it right. The judge ordered a deferred sentence with mandatory community service, therapy, and enrollment in the veteran-supported job program Jack had arranged. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Ethan's mother cried. Jack just stood there, silent, relieved. That night, Ethan sent Jack a text. "I won't let you down, sir. Thank you for not giving up on me." Jack didn't reply right away. He stared at the screen for a long time, then finally typed, "I'm not saving you, kid. You're saving yourself. I'm just walking beside you till you can stand on your own." Sometimes, the hardest enemies to face aren't out there in the field. They're the ones we carry home. And sometimes, redemption doesn't come in the form of medals or monuments. Sometimes it comes in a diner on a Tuesday morning when you choose not to walk away. 2 weeks into his new job at a local mechanic shop, Ethan was adjusting. He showed up early, stayed late, and said yes sir to everything. Jack checked in every few days. He'd stop by after his morning coffee, offer a nod, maybe a few words of advice. No lectures, just presence. But one morning, Ethan wasn't there. The shop owner said he'd called in sick. No other details. Something didn't sit right. Jack drove straight to the apartment complex. When he knocked, no one answered. The door was cracked open. He stepped in. Inside, Ethan was sitting on the floor, head in his hands. His mother's hospital bed empty. "She passed last night," Ethan said softly. "I was holding her hand." Jack removed his hat. "I didn't know what to do," Ethan continued. "She told me she was proud of me, said I looked like a man." There was a long silence. Then Ethan looked up, eyes red, face pale. "There's something I didn't tell you." Jack listened. "The night I came into the diner, that wasn't my first try. I'd walked past 3 other places. I chickened out each time. But when I saw you sitting there, calm, focused, I told myself, if I can scare that guy, then maybe I'm really broken." Jack furrowed his brow. "You were testing yourself?" Ethan nodded. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I wanted someone to stop me. I wanted someone like you." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jack said quietly, "You weren't broken. You were asking for help the only way you knew how." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, creased envelope. Inside was a photo, young Jack in uniform, standing beside a boyish Marine with a lopsided grin. "His name was Danny Malone," Jack said. "He died in my arms. He never made it home. But you did." Ethan stared at the photo, and for the first time in a long time, he cried. Sometimes, fate sends you a second chance wrapped in the face of someone completely unexpected. And if you're lucky, if you're paying attention, you won't miss it. A month later, the diner was busy again, sizzling bacon, clinking mugs, the hum of morning conversation. Jack sat in his usual booth, ate black coffee in hand. But this time, he wasn't alone. Ethan walked in wearing a clean uniform from the auto shop, grease under his nails, tired eyes, but standing tall. He slid into the seat across from Jack and offered a quiet smile. "First paycheck," he said, placing a crumpled envelope on the table. Jack looked at it, confused. "It's not much," Ethan admitted, "but I want to pay you back for the help, the calls, the support." Jack pushed the envelope back. "You already paid me back," he said. "You showed up." Ethan looked down, voice tight. "I thought I was too far gone." Jack sipped his coffee. "We all think that once." There was a pause. Then Ethan asked, "How do you live with the things you've seen, the things you've lost?" Jack looked out the window for a long time before answering. "You don't," he said finally. "Not really. You just learn to carry them better. And if you're lucky, you find someone to carry them with." Ethan nodded slowly, eyes misting. A waitress approached with refills. "The usual, Jack?" He looked at Ethan, then smiled. "Make it 2. Some stories don't end with a grand victory or a perfect redemption arc. Some just end with 2 people sharing coffee, and the quiet understanding that the war inside them is no longer theirs to fight alone. Because sometimes the heroes we need don't wear capes, or even uniforms. Sometimes they're just the person who doesn't walk away when we're at our worst. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect. Who helped you carry your burden when you thought no one could? Leave a comment below, share your story, and if you believe in second chances, help someone else find theirs. And as always, like, subscribe, and join us next time for another real story that just might change the way you see the world.